Oh, there we go.
There's camera.
First time I've seen Cameron, I do a bunch of work with the guy.
Hey,
Going, man.
good to see you.
Good to see you for a change. Always talking.
I know, we have that phone relationship, huh?
Yep.
So I think we're just waiting on our city engineer.
There we go. All right, are we good to go to get started?
I think, so, yeah, our city engineer's logging in now, so I think let's just go ahead and get started, and he'll join by the time we get through the formalities.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for viewing tonight's Planning Commission meeting. And I'd like to call the meeting to order at looks like 6:02 p.m. on May the 5th, 2020. As a reminder, if you're on our Zoom meeting as a participant, please put yourself on mute unless you are speaking. We are currently live streaming this meeting on the Lake County PEG TV live stream YouTube channel. You can submit your comments in writing throughout the meeting by emailing the city clerk. Her address can be found on our website. You can also submit your comments through our town hall portal, also found on the city's website. So to begin, I'm going to ask Madam Clerk, can we please have a roll call?
Commissioner Wilson?
Present.
Commissioner Coker?
Who did you ask for?
Commissioner Coker.
Here, I'm present.
Vice Chair Fitz? I think, Kathy, you're on mute. There you go.
I'm here. I'm sorry.
Okay. And Chair Bean?
Yeah, I'm present. So do we have a flag where we can view our American flag? Over there? Okay. So would we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? And I will begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, liberty and justice for all.
Amen. That went about as good as it does for Rotary when we do it at Rotary. All right. So while we are operating under these new meeting guidelines, I will explain our meeting procedures. Agenda items will be open for public comment before final action is taken. Citizens wishing to comment on any agenda item should email the city clerk or submit their comments through our town hall portal. Comments received will be read aloud by either myself or a staff member during the agenda item. Because we are operating in a virtual setting, I will call on my colleagues one at a time to speak. After commission operation, I will call for a roll call vote by the city clerk. If a remote participant encounters technical difficulties, I will ask that we continue discussing the item and the participant can rejoin when the technical difficulty is resolved. Again, if you are a participant who is not speaking, please mute your computer to prevent distractions from the current speaker. So the next item on the agenda is the adoption of our agenda. City Manager Flora, do we have any modifications to the agenda tonight?
No modifications, Chair Bean.
All right, thank you. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda as we have presented?
So moved. This is Lisa.
Okay, and can I have a second?
I'll second. This is Kathy.
All right. Motion by Lisa, seconded by Kathy to adopt the agenda. Roll call vote, please, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
Commissioner Coker,
Yes.
Vice Chair Fitz,
Yes.
and Chair Bean.
Yes. Okay, the next item on our agenda is seating of a newly appointed official. And the city clerk will administer the oath of office to Planning Commissioner appointee Erin McCarrick.
All right, Planning Commissioner appointee McCarrick, will you please raise your right hand and state the oath in front of you?
I, Erin McCarrick, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the State of California, that I take this obligation freely, without mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. Erin McCarrick.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Welcome to the commission.
Hey!
Love you too.
All right.
Virtually sworn in.
Yeah. Now we'll proceed with the next item on the agenda, which is a public hearing considering a request for use permit UP 01-20, variance V01-2, and parcel map PM 2018-01-1 for property located at 15885 Dam Road, extension APN 010-043-250000. And so as we begin this public hearing, we'll hear from our staff report from City Manager Flora. And if you can proceed with your report, please.
Sure, Chair Bean, members of the commission, thank you. So I'm actually going to share my screen, and we have just a few slides to kind of summarize the staff report. Mr. Price, our planning consultant, is going to give the commission the overview of the staff report. And as hopefully you all had a chance to review, we got some very late comments from Caltrans this afternoon. That letter was sent to you. So we'll kind of go through the normal presentation, and then we'll follow back up and specifically address each of those comments from Caltrans.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, good evening, and congratulations, Aaron. This project involves three actions: the use permit, the tentative parcel map, and subdivision. It involves two retail buildings. So the use permit, it actually applies to two drive-through facilities. And so the drive-through, it requires a use permit in accordance with section 18-4.445, which the Planning Commission, which was approved by the City Council, interpreted that in the C2 zoning district, drive-through facilities require use permit. So the use permit follows reviewing that. There are certain findings that must be made to approve the use permit that are identified in the code that involve the intensity of the use in the proposed location that's necessary or desirable and compatible with the neighborhood and the community, that the use will not be detrimental to the health, safety, convenience, or general welfare of persons residing, working in the vicinity, or being injurious to the property improvements within the neighborhood. And then there's 3 other subcategories that relate to that: traffic, safeguards for noxious emissions, treatment of appropriate aspects such as landscaping, and that is consistent with the general plan. An environmental initial study was prepared for the project, and which includes 21 mitigation measures. And we think at staff level that the project has been evaluated for compatibility with the neighborhood and does meet those findings. The parcel map consists of subdividing 1.31 acre lot into 2 parcels to allow for phased development of the project. The first project, which is going to be more immediate, is on parcel A, which is 0.6 acres, which is proposed to accommodate the drive-through, and parcel B, which is 0.71 acres. The subdivision complies with the zoning standards of a minimum 3,000 square foot lot area. There is access to the streets, and so city engineer has not noted any design concerns with the tentative parcel map. Relative to the variance, there's a couple of components involved in the sign variance. The first is a shopping center sign that's proposed to be 85 feet in height. The zoning regulations allow a maximum of 50 feet in height, so the variation would be to allow the increased height. And so there's exhibits that show how the sign would look. There's actually 2 optional locations. Location A is right on parcel A, where the drive-through coffee shop proposal is, and option B is on a separate parcel to the northeast of the coffee shop. And there was a visual survey done that shows how each option would look from the highway. So the variance applies to the height, and then in addition, there is a maximum square footage allowance for the project of 600 square feet, and with the shopping center sign being over 400 square feet, there's a request for about a 930 square foot total sign area for the total project site, including the sign. We also find that the sign should be looked at as an on-site, not an off-site sign for the shopping center. And so that's important to consider as part of the variance. So there was aesthetic evaluations done on both options A and option B. The applicant would like to keep its availability of choosing which option to select later on when the building permit's issued. The environmental initiative did look at the aesthetic impacts, and the survey, visual survey, shows that the design is consistent with some of our design elements in our general plan. For example, providing adequate signage for wayfinding to enhance the city's entrances to the town. And the sign has an attractive logo on top that says "Look Clearly." So we find that the project's going to be the sign's going to be an enhancement and meets the general plan. So in total, the variance, the commission will need to make findings for the variance that there are extraordinary circumstances applying to the property involved or to the intended use of the property. In this case, the sign provides an identification of the city. It's a primary commercial center. That this commercial center is visually impaired from vehicles traveling public due to topography and vegetation along Highway 53. That the general plan and zoning recognizes this area along 53 between Old Highway 53 and 18th Avenue as needs special consideration for commercial identification and entryway with a shopping center, and there are sufficient sign area allowances for reasonable identification of the retail center. The second finding would be that owing to such exceptional or extraordinary circumstances, the literal enforcement of specific provisions of the code would result in practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship not created by or attributable to the applicant or owner of the property, and that the sign provides identification to the city's primary commercial center, and this commercial center is visually impaired by the physical topography issues I mentioned previously. And finally, the variance does not constitute a grant of special privilege inconsistent with limitations imposed on similarly zoned properties in the view, in that the view of the shopping center to travelers on Highway 53 is restricted by trees and topography, which is unique to this particular site. So those are really the three main factors in reviewing these three actions that the commission will be taking tonight. Relative to zoning compliance, we reviewed the project for consistency with various things such as building height, setbacks, parking, landscaping, trash, outdoor lighting, and everything does comply with the sign regulation or with the zoning code. We find that the project is consistent with the general plan. We've identified a number of policies and objectives and programs that the project does, and that the planning commission can make findings to be consistent with the general plan. The staff conducted an initial study, prepared a mitigated negative declaration in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, and the study included a number of technical studies, including air modeling for air impacts and greenhouse gas emissions, conducted by Millennium Planning, and I prepared the actual analysis. Cultural prepared by Subterra Consulting, and the traffic prepared by W-Trans. The Caltrans had requested that the traffic impact study be prepared, and so that's what we did. We do have Cameron Nye here from W-Trans to answer questions that the public or the planning commission have regarding the mitigation measures. But we do have 21 mitigation measures that address the project, and the staff finds that, and the commission should also find that the project will not result in an adverse environmental impact subject to the mitigation measures. And the applicant has agreed to all of the mitigation measures. So the next part of the report is to evaluate the public comments. Comments we received included staff review, and the city engineer is here to answer questions. We received comments from the Lake County special districts that showed that there's sufficient capacity for the sewer. And then at this late date, we did receive comments from Caltrans, and I'd like to have Cameron and our city engineer, Dave Schwartz, answer some of those questions. Before we get to those things, we've created a resolution for the commission's considerations, and it covers all three actions together. So there's actually three attachments to the resolution. There's the 21 mitigation measures. There's the conditions of approval for the use permit that go beyond the mitigation measures that include indemnification, the building permits necessary for the construction, the sign permit is needed. There's our conventional conditions that include the use permit becoming effective upon completing the CEQA, filing of a notice of determination. The tentative map has your conventional conditions that require approval by the city engineer and filing with the county. So with that, I'd like to maybe talk a little bit about, hopefully you've all received the letter from Caltrans, their concerns noted regarding the questions of adequacy for the traffic study. And I'll let Cameron maybe talk about the responses to those comments at this time.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
All right. My name's Cameron Nye, traffic engineer with W-Trans, and we prepared the traffic study for the project. I was going to just go through the comments letter that we received from Caltrans not too long ago, unfortunately. But I had a chance to review it, and I'd like to just kind of walk you through my my responses. The first page of the letter, I assume that everyone has the letter in front of them.
I'm going to try
Great.
to pull it up on the screen so
Okay.
that way it's easier to follow maybe.
Great. And Alan, if you wanted to scroll to the beginning of the second page, that'd be great. So the first page is just a description of the project and description of the facilities in the area. The second page is where their comments actually come in. And their first comment here, labeled modeling, has to do with the heavy vehicle percentages assumed for the traffic analysis. We use 2%, which is the standard. Caltrans is saying 7%, maybe more realistic. So a similar situation came up in Napa County recently, and so we actually did a revised analysis and used, I think we used 8% in Napa County, if I remember correctly, but the results basically were that there's a nominal change in conditions. So, you know, barring, you know, substantial data there supporting 7%, the reality is that it's just not going to have much of an impact on the analysis. You really need to get the heavy vehicle percentage up to, you know, more like 20 or so to actually see a significant change in the analysis. The comments on the trip generation here, number 2, they didn't necessarily agree with the pass-by diverted rate that we assumed for our analysis. So for a coffee shop with a drive-through window, ITE, which is the Institute of Transportation Engineers, does not actually have data available for this specific land use. So we used a comparable land use and then modified that number based on our professional opinion. And the 80% that we applied to this project is the same assumption that we've applied to numerous traffic studies for Starbucks projects throughout Northern California. So we do think that the 80% is reasonable, especially considering that this project is close proximity to State Route 53 Regional Highway, as well as the regional shopping center right next door as well. And for the peak hour analysis, which is what the traffic is based on, oftentimes coffee trips are linked up with another trip. Very few are primary during the AM or PM peak hours. So we do believe that our analysis is accurate. We can go ahead and move on to number 3 here, queuing. So Caltrans also didn't necessarily agree that the queuing condition at Dam Road Extension would be acceptable. And we think that because there are 2 through lanes on eastbound Dam Road, that should that queue in the left turn lane actually spill into the through lane, it wouldn't impact conditions because you do have those 2 through lanes. And also because speeds are so low in this area, as all vehicles have to stop at the Dam Road intersection being an always stop controlled intersection. So because of the low speeds and because there are 2 through lanes, queues would be able to spill over during the morning peak hour, which is the only time that this issue came up, and that would be an acceptable condition. It's important to note that These issues have already been identified, which is why a roundabout is planned for the intersection in the first place. The feasibility study has already been completed for the roundabout. Project study report, which is the next phase in the process to actually getting the roundabout built, is underway right now. This project was identified in the general plan, and it is on a path to be constructed closer to now than it would be closer to the future conditions, scenario 20 years down the road. So we do think that contributing their fair share costs to that project is an adequate mitigation measure. And then we can go ahead and scroll to the next page as well. Okay, so the site layout here has to do with the Dam Road extension driveway. And this is an existing driveway, so any changes that would be made to it would have a direct impact on the Carl's Jr. Facility there. So, you know, in this situation, Caltrans is probably trying to close down an access point that's relatively close to their State Route 53 intersection, which you know, it does have a benefit, but because this is an existing driveway, and because it actually provides some benefit to the project having two access points. And in fact, there's a comment in here at some point in the document about how because there's two driveways, traffic could bypass the Dam Road extension intersection to get to State Route 53 via the driveways, which is actually a benefit because then that would reduce delay in queuing at that intersection. So the multiple access points we believe here are a good thing for the project. And then their next comment here about VMT and LOS. Those of you that don't know, VMT is vehicle miles traveled, which is the next phase of the CEQA requirements. As of July 1st, 2020, level of service will no longer be used and vehicle mile travels will be used. However, not relevant necessarily to this project, which is basically what their comment summarizes there. And then we can move on to the mitigation measures down here that they have recommended. So Caltrans is recommending that the city proceed with an intersection control evaluation for the Dam Road extension intersection. This is a relatively new requirement that's being done on Caltrans facilities, but it's important to note that the intersection of Dam Road and Dam Road extension is not a Caltrans facility. So the process that the city is currently going through is adequate for that intersection, and that includes the feasibility study, the PSR, which are all moving forward. The next one has to do with pedestrian connectivity, and I think perhaps maybe it wasn't clear to the Caltrans reviewers that the project. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you give a little bit more detail on the timing of the roundabout project? The comment here, the second part of comment number 1 seems to indicate that there's no clear timeline for when this project would occur. So maybe you and/or the city engineer could provide a little more information on that.
Yeah, I'll touch on that briefly, and then I'll kick it over to Dave. So, and Caltrans is probably not as involved in this process as we are and all of you are, but the feasibility study has been completed. The roundabout was determined to be the best solution to the intersection. The project study report is underway right now, and my understanding is that this project has a potential to be operational within the next 5 years. It should also be noted that there is a development impact fee report underway for the city right now, and this project will be identified in that impact fee. So Dave, I'm going to go ahead and let you touch on that if you have anything to add.
I think you've covered it. The feasibility report has been completed and the studies have been done. We are currently underway with the PSR. I think there's around $500,000 that has been dedicated now through APC for what we call PS&Es, which is plans, specifications, and estimates. And really that's just a precursor to construction and bidding. So I would think that Caltrans would have known because they have been participating. This has been identified by APC as a regional project, and it's amongst the highest priority in the county. So that's what I was saying.
To just summarize that up, I think that it's pretty clear that this project is happening, and it's actually making substantial progress as we go here.
So one final comment, if I could, on that. In the mitigations, there is discussion about, so Cameron mentioned that the city is in the process of doing a development impact fee review. The city council so far has not adopted that program. It's not quite complete yet, but we did negotiate with the developer that they would pay an amount equal to what was determined to be their portion of that particular project. And so those numbers are included. And so we view that as an existing mitigation for the project's impact on this intersection. So that's all. Thank you.
Great. Jumping down here to number 2, pedestrian connectivity. So the project is going to provide sidewalks along both of its frontages with Dam Road and Dam Road extension. So perhaps that wasn't made clear to Caltrans in the review, but that is happening. They also make a comment in here, let's see, about closing the sidewalk gap along Carl's Jr. And that would be an offsite improvement. Now, would that be beneficial? Sure, it would. But it is possible for pedestrians to get from that corner to the project site using sidewalks and crosswalks. So not necessarily a necessity. Dave, do you want to add anything on that one?
Yeah, what I would add is, it would be pretty unique without some extenuating circumstances on a project of this size, being that it's fairly small, to have them construct improvements that were not directly connected to their site. And secondly, as far as pedestrian connectivity, the roundabout has sidewalks and really ultimately addresses this on a more regional level. So if you were to put sidewalks in there, they're likely going to be ripped out anyway.
Yeah, the whole configuration of this area is going to be changing when that roundabout comes in. As you can imagine, roundabouts are a much larger footprint than throwing a traffic signal in there, so the conditions are going to change pretty substantially. And any improvements that would go in now would obviously be ripped out here in the next few years when that roundabout is constructed.
Don't you have like an exhibit in your study that shows the roundabout?
We do. We could try and pull that up later if the commissioners have any questions on that. But and then the one final thing I would add is, staff certainly do agree that there should have been those improvements required when the Carl Jr.'s project was put in. That's something that the city should have required at that time, but we don't feel like there's a nexus to require it of this particular development on another site.
And then on comment 3 here, I touched on this one a little bit earlier, but this has to do with modifying the Dam Road driveway to be an entrance only, so you could not exit there, or closing that driveway altogether. And as I mentioned earlier, I actually think it's a benefit for this project to have multiple access points, so that if you are able to, if it works with your route and you are able to skip the Dam Road extension intersection via the driveways, then that's okay. So I think that we're good on that one. Dave, I'm gonna offer it up for you again.
Well, like you say, the driveway, I think Caltrans is looking at this incorrectly, as you explained, in that I think that they are used to monitoring facilities with traffic that travels in either one direction or two directions at high rates of speed. And, you know, for an intermodal project like this, you and I both agree from a technical perspective that having both of those driveways is an asset and actually enhances the queuing abilities.
It does, and the applicants have made it very clear that the Dam Road Extension driveway is the primary access point. So Dam Road here would be a secondary access point, and having that secondary access point does provide some benefit. And then on comment 4 here is about bicycle parking. In our traffic study, we actually recommended 4 bicycle parking spaces. Caltrans thinks that might be a little low. They're recommending 50% of the vehicle spaces, which might be more relevant in an urban type environment. But considering that I think there was only about 17 vehicle parking spaces for the project, it would only result in the need of about 8 bike parking spaces if you did want to go with that 50% recommendation. So we're recommending 4. They said 8. You know, the addition of bicycle parking, more bicycle parking to a project is, you know, never a bad thing, but also not always necessarily a good thing either. And then I think that is it. The rest here is just normal verbiage that has to do with the encroachment permit.
Yep, that's right. So at this point, I think we're ready to receive any questions of staff.
I'd like to add a couple of comments if I could before you go, before you get. The one thing that we look at in a city engineering perspective and standpoint technically is level of service. I know that's going to change to a different acronym. I think it's ultimately going to mean the same thing. The important thing here is, and what wasn't disputed by Caltrans of the study, is that the project does not degrade the level of service acceptable to the city or to Caltrans at their intersection of State Route 53 and Dam Road. I think that's really important to recognize, because of a lot of what their letter has doesn't mean a lot to me as a city engineer until it does something to degrade a level of service that would impact traffic safety or otherwise. So I think that's important to recognize. Also, we have 2 very good independent studies done at separate times, both the recent one with Trans, but the other one was with Omni Means, which was done a few years ago for the general plan. So we have 2 independent traffic studies, and Caltrans has had the benefit of both of those traffic studies processed through them, went through the general plan process and most recently through this process. So both traffic studies are in agreement with the traffic modeling and with the queuing and with the levels of service. And then my sense is that, and I stated this earlier, that Caltrans has probably very good at assessing traffic on their roads, but they're probably not very good at assessing traffic on our roads. And it's because we travel differently at different speeds for different reasons. And excuse me, and that's why we have this particular study. And I think what you have oftentimes is reviewers that have a difficult time understanding that. You know, we're not traveling at 55 miles an hour. And W-Trans, as well as Omni Means, has done an awful lot of studies of just these types of projects with Starbucks. And Cameron touched on this earlier when you're talking about the disagreement or dispute of what type of traffic model to use, or how to assess bypass flows. Was it 50% or is it 80%? Well, you know, the question I would have for anybody critiquing that is, well, how many studies have you yourself done to make these assessments, you know? And I know that W-Trans has done a lot of these because that's their core business, is to do this type of work. And again, it's not Caltrans' core business. So to just carte blanche make offers of numerical values like 50% and 7%, of course, as a city engineer, causes me a lot of stress because I'm a numbers guy. Gary, thank you. I just wanted to add that to the commission for their consideration.
Thank you. Yeah, it's, yeah, we have been working with Caltrans as a partner entity, and we gave them the opportunity. Well, first of all, we didn't really have to do the traffic study, but at their request, we felt we should address their concerns with a total traffic impact study, which the applicant offered to do. So we do appreciate the applicant's offer, and we find that the traffic study is adequate and addresses California Environmental Quality Act requirements and the city's environmental threshold requirements. We have 21 mitigation measures that include 2 traffic mitigation measures that include the mitigation fee study or mitigation fees and some site preservation requirements for the driveways. And, we find that the project does meet the level of the city's environmental requirements. So at this point, we'd like to hear any questions of staff, and then we'll have Matt Mark from the applicant offer some comments.
Questions from staff or commissioners? Yeah.
So I will ask each commissioner, I guess, if there are any questions you have for the staff. And let's start with Commissioner Wilson.
Hi, thank you. I have a couple of questions. What's the project timeline?
Well, the project timeline, I defer to the applicant, but as I understand it, it's the phase 1's more immediate and will be done within a year. And then the phase 2 is a little bit more off and depending on the market and the ability to secure tenants. But I'll let Matt talk about that a little bit. Matt, do you want to respond to that?
Sure. Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Gary. Yes, the project timeline, we would commence our construction documents for the phase 1 immediately upon the approval of Planning Commission, if you so desire to approve this project. We've been working closely with our tenant for the phase 1, and then our leasing director has been actively working on securing tenants for the phase 2 building, and that's actually been very positively received. So we definitely move as fast as possible.
And I know that we're splitting into the 2 parcels, and there's a potential. Are you considering selling the 1 or more of the parcels before you complete phase 2?
I don't, right now at this time, we don't have any plans to sell the parcels.
Okay.
It could occur, but we don't, not at this time.
Okay. Downlighting, I know that I saw the word downlighting in the lighting description, and there's a schematic that describes, but I didn't really know how to read the downlighting. So at some point before we leave, if you could highlight that. Lake County is a dark sky county, and it's important that we keep that safe. You answered my sign questions. You answered most of my traffic questions. We have the transportation hub coming in there just, a block or 2 away from there. So I just wondered if that raised any concerns over it fit right into your traffic studies and raised no red flags, or how you thought about that?
Well, the staff has.
Or myself.
Go ahead.
I'm not sure who can answer that.
Well, the traffic hub is really a benefit. If the new way of looking at VMT on traffic is to have these types of facilities available for alternative transportation. And so we see this as a real benefit and a mitigation to projects like this, because people can use the transit hub alternatively. You get your coffee, park your car, or take the bus. You know, there's all kinds of benefits.
Right. So it would have been accounted for. The traffic coming in and out of that transit hub would have been accounted for in your traffic studies for this.
The general plan actually did show the transit hubs, actually two, one there and one over near the lake.
And to the developer, I wondered, you know, with our PG&E public safety power shutdowns, if you were allocating space for generators, or how just you were thinking about that. You're going to put them in now, or just wait until you see if you need them?
Yeah. Right now, we are not currently planning for a generator, but we do have space on each parcel for one.
And I would support, it's not a deal breaker, but I would support adding more bike parking. There's a community college just down the road, and I would like to see more biking in the community, and anything that supports that I would support. And those are the end of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Commissioner Coker, do you have any comments?
The only comment I have is about the traffic situation, because of the, you have the college and then you have KEC back there, and I know that it's already congested with traffic as it is.
Do you have any particular concerns or comments or questions about that?
Just that I know that in the morning commute and in the afternoon when the kids are out of school and before they're going, I know there's a lot of traffic at the lights. That's my only concern about it.
And I guess I would go ahead and say that in the traffic study, we addressed the levels of service at both the intersections, Dam Road and State Route 53, and Dam Road and Dam Road Extension. And the State Route 53 Dam Road Extension is currently operating at level service C during both the morning and evening peak hour, and would continue to operate at C with project traffic. And then Dam Road and Dam Road Extension is currently operating at B, and then would operate at B and C with project traffic. So, you know, consistent with city policy.
Okay, Commissioner McCarrick, do you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, thanks. I echo Commissioner Coker's concerns about traffic. That was one of the things I posed to city staff is, what if the second drive-through is something like an In-N-Out or a Chick-fil-A, and those lines can go around the block? I was told that that's not a concern right now because they might not be looking at us, but drive-throughs and new restaurants are novel. So there could be a lot of traffic, especially with the college right there. And so I was curious, so I support the roundabout. I think that's a great mitigation measure. And looking at the last image, it's just a black and white image of the development plan that was up. I just want to make sure that I understand that there's the driveway on Dam Road by Carl's Jr. Yeah, so there'd be the driveway on Dam Road that it would go in between Carl's Jr. and in between Starbucks. And then there's the one that would go in between Starbucks and the new drive-through. Are those the only two entrances and exits to that complex?
Yes, that's correct. I don't know if Cameron wants to jump in, but this one here between the Carl's Jr. and the coffee shop is existing right now, and then there actually is an entrance here now, but this would be improved somewhat with this part of the project. But those are the only two.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I was just going to say that the Carl's Jr. is an existing driveway, and then they're actually both existing driveways, but the project would improve the driveway on Dam Road Extension. So there would be two access points.
Is there going to be any sort of signage for direction, knowing where people need to go to get to each drive-through?
Yes.
I had two more questions. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
there would be a complete sign program that would be submitted as part of the building permit application. And staff would be reviewing that with the applicant. And they're typically 4 square foot sign, directional signs where they put the, where the arrows are, and we work with the applicants. Now, we typically don't bring that level of detail to the planning commission for these projects, but we certainly could. But it's something that we'd work through with the applicant.
And then the other question was if there's been, it's kind of I don't know if it'll be relevant in the future, but as much as I want to see the biking, I also do support the parking spots right now because of situation with COVID and potentially like unforeseen situations in the beginning where, for example, like the Taco Bell drive-thru right now, you have to park and wait for your items. So increased parking isn't a bad thing right now. I guess that's more of a comment. My question was, did the college submit any comments or feedback from the community letter that went out?
We don't typically circulate something like this to the college unless they're within a 300-foot radius. And I'm not sure, I'd have to ask our assistant planner whether that I don't think the college is within 300 feet, so they would not have received these plans for review.
I would also address Commissioner Carrick on the Chick-fil-A or In-N-Out, which I'm kind of be really nice because I like both of those restaurants. But when you look at the configuration, the layout of the second potential project, there's a lot of queuing space that goes in and around that facility and out back and through the parking lots. Although both of those, I don't know that anybody could ever design a traffic queuing that could handle those levels of traffic that those types of facilities generate. But certainly, this has quite a bit and more than a lot of similar type facilities that we see go in. So this is, I don't know if it was by design, but I just think it would be worth pointing out.
And we're also told that both Chick-fil-A and In-N-Out do not locate in multi-tenant developments like this, so it's unlikely that we'd be able to attract them to this particular site as much as we would probably all like to see them.
Thank you. Those are my questions, Commissioner Bean. Chair.
All right, thank you. Vice Chair Fitz, do you have any questions or comments for the staff?
I guess so. My only question at this point, and I should actually know where it's going, is the roundabout actually out on Highway 53 or is it at the Dam Road area?
Yeah, it would be planned for the Dam Road extension intersection.
Okay, thank you. I think everybody else asked my questions. My major issue is in fact all of the traffic there, especially in the morning hours with everyone taking their children to school. There's a lot of times there is traffic out in the intersection on the actual highway because of buses turning in to go to the school. So that's my major concern. I know there's a child hit there last year because of the traffic issues. So that's where I lie on that. I think it looks great. I really like the signage appearance. I think it's something that we need. But again, for me, it's the traffic.
I would just go in and add that a lot of the issues that I am hearing and the concerns for traffic have already been identified, and the roundabout is really going to be a huge benefit to circulation within the area, not just from a reduction in delay, but actually a safety benefit as well. Study after study shows that roundabouts have proven safety benefits to not only vehicles, but to bicyclists and pedestrians as well. They can reduce speeds and keep traffic moving in a consistent manner. So I do think when that comes in, the whole area is going to have a different feel to it.
All right. Anything else, Commissioner Fitz?
No,
I guess it's, all right, then it's my turn. I kind of concur with the obvious traffic mitigation necessity. If I read the report correctly, was that they're estimating an additional 1,000 vehicles that'll be using that intersection daily, an extra 1,000? Is that what I read?
So yes, that's about correct. The net new trips would be about 1,038 over the course of a day.
Yes. So the implementation of this, I can't even imagine with the existing traffic flow and that who's on first, I don't know who's on second, who's going to go first, the way that intersection is now, which is very horrific sometimes when it's congested. So the timeline for this roundabout, probably as soon as possible, would be the answer to that problem. And I too had a question about Lake County Transit and that hub that we have approved already. Will they be contributing to this roundabout funds to implement that?
Really, this is Gary. It depends on how we establish our development impact fees, and we're developing that. Cameron's actually helping us produce the studies for traffic, but it includes other things. The traffic hub was included in the general plan traffic study analysis. So cumulatively for the next 20 years, we anticipated the traffic hub as part of the cumulative effects of traffic in the general plan. So it's interesting that you brought that up, because I think that they would, when they build it, they're going to have some obligation to pay their fair share of development impact fees, along with everybody else that develops in the city. So, the question, I guess the answer is, yeah, we've addressed it, and two, they probably will be paying their fair share.
Well, Chair Bean, if I could add, so as I'm sure all of you saw, they did receive funding for the construction of that project, which is wonderful. They still have to facilitate the transfer of the property from the county, and then, of course, they would have to move through the use permit process and have that project come back before the commission before moving forward. So we'd probably look to, as Mr. Price mentioned, probably the impact fee, the development impact fee program will be in place by the time that happens, and then we would handle it like any other project.
And we can include the roundabout in that assessment for them?
Yeah, well, it's already included in the study, and so we would have to look at through the CEQA process, but it seems quite likely that there would be a nexus there to require some mitigation for that particular project.
Yeah. That roundabout appears to be one of the largest, because it's a 2-lane roundabout, multi-lane roundabout. So it would appear to be one of the major roundabouts in the county from what we've already built. So I can imagine it's going to be expensive. Plus, I noted.
Yeah, it's a conceptual design at this point. I think this was in some of the materials, but this is what was put together. But as was mentioned earlier, more design work or preliminary design work is starting as the project continues to move forward. So it's probably on the, there's traffic issues now. This is really the way to solve a lot of that. But we're looking at 5 to 7 years probably till this is complete.
That's a long time, but I understand. Okay, I'll now open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, are there any public comments on this agenda item?
Chair Bean, I have not received any public comments on this item.
Okay, thank you. So we will officially close the public hearing phase of this at this point, and ask each commissioner if they have any further comments for deliberation before we take any action. Commissioner Wilson?
Yeah, I would like the downlighting document to be reviewed on the screen. And my last question is the sign. I understand the developer would like some leeway to decide at a later date, but one of the options is on a parcel that's not the parcel that's part of this development. So who owns that parcel, and what's the thinking around that? Thank you.
Yes, if I may, Chairperson Bean and staff, if this is Matt Noor with the Orozco Group, the applicant, if I could maybe answer a few questions that the Planning Commission had, and if I could so be accommodated.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So first, I wanted just to thank the commission and city for being innovative and proactive in continuing this project and holding this kind of meeting through electronic media. It's really refreshing. The city staff has been great to work with and in advancing the project. We're very excited to be coming to Clear Lake and excited about this project. I wanted just to give you a little background history for those who may not be aware that this project site was actually a former Fresh and Easy neighborhood grocery store. And that project at that time, before the Fresh and Easy unfortunately went bankrupt and ceased the project, that was a 14,000 square foot neighborhood retail development with an additional 7,000 square foot retail. And so to put that into kind of context, our project combined phase 1 and phase 2 is 7,076 square feet. So we're about half the size of that prior project. So you could imagine our traffic impact is, roughly half of what was previously approved and proposed at that site. So that was one thing we kind of looked at that, and we're taking that in consideration moving forward with the project. The other item I wanted just to talk a little about was the parking and bicycle requirement. Per the California, this project has complied to Cal Green non-residential building standards. They require 5% of the total parking on site be dedicated for bicycles. So that really equates to 1 stall. We are following Cameron's team, W-Trans's recommendation of 4 stalls. So that's, fourfold the requirement. And I think that's really more than sufficient. Going to 50% is great in concept. Our concern would be you're creating almost like a playground jungle gym for kids with that many 2 bike racks. I think 4 is probably more than adequate to serve this area. In terms of the project as well, in terms of lighting that was brought up, yes, all the fixtures are LED downlights. The downlights on the building themselves are the cylinder decorative type of fixtures, and a lot of times those cylinder fixtures have the option to be both vertical or downlight and uplight, and we've specified only downlight, understanding the city's dark sky ordinance. Similarly, with our parking lot, we have the LED going fixtures, and those have the cutoffs and have been placed so that there's no site lighting pollution on the adjacent parcels. And we've also have lower pole heights as well. And then the monument sign and so forth is all internally lit. We don't have uplights or anything like that on the building. The question about the pylon sign and having it either on option A, which is in the middle of our parcel, or option B, closer to the highway, which is on an adjacent property. There are CC&Rs already on this project site that allow for cross-access driveway and parking, and included in those CC&Rs includes the right to construct that pylon sign on that parcel if we so pursue to. But we think it's, right now, we prefer to put it on the location option A in the middle of the site. And again, we've designed that sign to incorporate the City of Clear Lake logo that will continue to further refine with city staff as we develop the signs for the project. Let's see, I think we talked about traffic, and we are actively pursuing tenants for the phase 2 project. As staff mentioned, Chick-fil-A and In-N-Out Burger typically like a standalone pad. They do not go to an inline condition. So those two, as much as we would like to bring them to Clear Lake, we just don't right now have an interest from them, and we're not in any active conversations with them. We would be more of a more traditional inline type of QSR restaurant type use with another retail tenant on the other side. In terms of the other question that was brought up was a question on site signage. Yes, that each tenant, if they do have a drive-through, we would include directional drive-through signage, and we would submit that accordingly to the city for staff review to make sure it conforms to all city standards. So I think with that, if there's any other questions or clarifications on the project, again, we're really excited. We're geared up to move forward and get our construction documents going on phase 1 and looking to get some building built and sticks in the air. So we're really excited, and thank you.
All right. Commissioner Coker, any further comments for deliberation?
I have none.
Okay. Commissioner McCarrick, any further comments?
One quick question to, I guess the developer. On the traffic response from Caltrans, or Caltrans number 3, the site layout, they recommend providing a one-way ingress to the project from Dam Road, whether that be an ingress or an egress. Would that be something, if it does turn out that there is a lot of traffic, would that be something that either our city or the developer would be open to, of having kind of a flow of a one-way in, one-way out?
From the development perspective, we think it actually would hinder and further exacerbate any traffic constraints and issues there. It would really bottleneck the site access. Instead of allowing 2 free flowing points of ingress and egress, now you would be really focusing it on one driveway. I think the 2 driveways provide relief in case if one driveway is backed up, they've got the other, and vice versa. I think W-Trans has done a very good and thorough analysis of the parking and circulation on site, and we concur with their recommendations that the current design is more than sufficient. And again, with the upcoming right-of-way, the roundabout, I think those issues will be further resolved.
That's it, thank you.
All right. Vice Chair Fitz, any other questions or comments?
I think I'm good.
I forgot about this on the signage. We have an existing pylon sign that as we come into Clear Lake, traveling northbound on Highway 53. Are we talking about this being a second sign, or is this sign that's proposed in this project going to take the place of the one that's already there, or are we going to have, is it supposed to be both of them in operation?
I'll address that, Gary. So you're right, there is a second one. You can barely see it, as most of you are aware, because of a lot of vegetation and trees. That's all within the Caltrans right-of-way. And, you know, that's one of the issues that has led to the need for an additional sign in this area, is because the lack of visibility of that, and the importance of that visibility to retailers. And, you know, our Public Works Director and myself have sat down with Caltrans multiple times and tried to get them to clear out that area so there's additional visibility for that sign. And they said, according to their regulations, they can't do that. There isn't enough of a need unless there's some type of fire danger. I tried to argue that there was a fire danger in that area, but basically what they said, the solution is someone's going to have to put a sign in a different location. And so this is really the solution. You know, it seems like it would have been nice if we could have just had that area cleared out and provide a lot of visibility there. But we think this is the next best solution at this point. And I would just add, you know, in most areas of the city, we don't want to have a lot of signage clutter, and a large sign like this is pretty unique. From staff perspective, we feel like there's really only 2 locations in the city where something like this makes sense. One is here at this proposed location, and then across the street, potentially at the airport property, when there's a larger retail development in that area, would be the only 2 locations that we would recommend supporting something like this.
The other comment I had was on the Caltrans letter. Does Caltrans have any oversight or enforcement ability for us as a city to enforce what their proposal was, even though we may object or want to modify it? Do they have any say so in terms of enforcement?
You're talking about the signage specifically?
No, just the report, the Caltrans letter.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it states areas of disagreement and advice, and I just wonder how much credence do they have in terms of being able to enforce what their findings were?
Well, so the City of Clear Lake is the lead agency under CEQA, and so this commission gets to make the decision on what the appropriate mitigation measures are. If Caltrans disagrees that strongly, then they would have to come back and challenge the adequacy of the environmental document that's associated with those mitigation measures, which, you know, it doesn't appear that they, it's very infrequent that they do that. We feel like the commission has a firm basis to make the recommended decision before you, but that's how the process would work if they felt strongly against a decision made by the commission to support this.
If I could just chime in. I think your question also had to do with the jurisdiction of the signage. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, they did mention the Caltrans purview of the sign. And of course, if it was a billboard type sign, which would be an off-site directional sign, then yes, they would have jurisdiction, and they would not only need city approval, but they need to get clearances from their outdoor advertising division, and that's what they're referencing in their letter. But because we've defined the sign as being an on-site shopping center sign, we don't believe Caltrans has authority to require. So.
Okay.
Clearly, this isn't a billboard.
You know, they were adamant about some of their provisions, and I just wondered how far they could go, especially since this is not in a Caltrans right away. We're not doing work in their area, so just wanted to clarify that. All right, that roundabout's going to be essential, and I know you're talking 5 to 7 years out on it, but sure hope that it would be sooner than that. Of course, even the construction during that time is going to make that intersection a real hard one to get through. when school is going, when they're picking up kids and taking kids, and college, and then, so it's a busy street, busy intersection. Okay, then I will entertain a motion, if we would, to adopt resolution, let's see, what is it?
Resolution PC 2020-01.
What is it? 20?
2020-01.
2020.
Okay. And that is a adoption of the approval of the use permit UP 01-20, the variance, V 01-2, and parcel map PM 2018-1 for a property located at 15885 Dam Road Extension. So we're approving this resolution, which incorporates all three of those factors, the mitigation, the 20 some odd mitigations, the variances for the sign, and et cetera, as we've been. So at this time, I guess is there a motion to adopt this resolution?
Also move. Melissa, how do you want me to read it?
If you have the, just the title, the first title.
I move that, I do. So
Okay.
I move that we pass a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Clear Lake concurring with issuing a mitigated negative declaration and approving with findings and subject to conditions use permit UP 01-20, tentative parcel map PM 2018-04 and variance V 01-20 for 7,100 square foot commercial center on a 1.31 acres at 15885 Dam Road Extension, Clear Lake, California, APN 010-043-25.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilson. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Fitz. Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Wilson?
Yes.
Commissioner Coker?
Yes.
Commissioner McCarrick?
Yes.
Vice Chair Fitz?
Yes.
And Chair Bean?
Aye. So by unanimous consent, it's approved, and motion carries. The next item on the agenda, what's that?
Yeah, thank you.
a
We
good
do look
project.
forward. Yeah, thank
Well,
you.
it's great
Thank
great
you.
to be with you. We certainly hope, this is a fantastic project and great location for retail. And, it's not in a residential area. It's in a total business district area, especially with the transit hub being connected close by. I can see the, traffic between that facility and this facility where it opens up to the public, a lot of options there. So, very good. City Manager, Community Development Director, or staff, any reports to give at this time?
I'll just give you a few quick updates. First of all, I wanted to make sure and introduce Susanna to you. Maybe Susanna can wave. You can barely see her, but Susanna's our new assistant planner that's been with us for several months now. She came up from the Bay Area, graduated from Berkeley, and she's just doing a wonderful job, really jumping in. And just couldn't be more pleased with the progress that she's making. We did get approval from the City Council to hire an additional associate planner position, but due to, and we did a recruitment for that position due to budget concerns related to the COVID environment right now, we put a freeze on filling that position, and so I don't know when and if that may happen. Hopefully most of you have seen the great progress that's being made over Austin Park. So things are getting pretty close to being done. We're expecting everything to be complete in the park this month. Most of the bandstand has went up. There was a bracket that was sent incorrectly, and so that's kind of slowed things down the last few days. But most of the lawn is seeded. The dog park's pretty much done. Playground equipment's here and will be installed soon. And then, so really the main thing that's left, besides waiting for the grass to all get sprouted up, is finish that bandstand, do some electrical work, and get all of our new lighting installed. A couple of former redevelopment agency items. So the City Council, acting as the successor agency to the RDA, approved a purchase agreement for 18 lots on 36th Avenue to be sold to a housing developer. Next Thursday, or this Thursday, that item will be before the Lake County Oversight Board for final approval of that, but we're excited about that project. This developer plans to put 18 lots in and also install drainage improvements and a new paved road between Phillips Avenue and Eureka Avenue right there. Most of you are probably familiar, that kind of jogs off out of the right of way, and there's always drainage issues every winter down in that area. But the developer's willing to make those improvements to the satisfaction of the city engineer. So hopefully the Oversight Board agrees and we get that project moving forward soon. We did receive a proposed purchase agreement for the Austin Resort property here across the street. And so we'll be working through our process to get approval from the City Council and then the Oversight Board on that. So there's two parcels that we would be looking to sell. One is owned by the city and one is owned by the former redevelopment agency. They would like to purchase both of those. The plan is to put a resort hotel, marina, retail, restaurant. These are folks that have a significant access to resources and just couldn't be more excited about that project moving forward. So we have had a little bit, there was some of you were around when most of the cannabis use permits were approved. I guess that's been, close to 18 months now since a lot of those were complete. Because of a couple of the property owners needing to perform some improvements that were required by the condition of, or the Planning Commission as part of their use permit conditions. Those have been kind of stringing along, and the curb, gutter, and sidewalk improvements at the Olympic Drive property were recently completed, and so some of those businesses will be getting their business licenses and moving forward soon. And then there's a little bit of progress with the fire tank and whatnot out at the Ogulin Canyon property. So just wanted to give a quick update. There has been a transfer of one of the licenses at the Olympic Drive property, and then there's a couple other conversations about other folks' plans have maybe changed and are looking to transfer. But in the event that there's a situation where any of those permits need to be modified, or someone just pulls out of their license altogether, of course, we would have to bring those back to the commission at that time. So I guess with that, that's my report, unless any of the commissioners have any questions about any projects going on in the city.
I have a question, Alan. The property on Old 53 between 53 and Highlands Harbor has been cleared all the way down to the creek. It's several acres. Yeah. And I was just curious what you could tell us about that.
So we've had a few conversations with the owner of that property. It is for sale, and the owner is interested in, kind of whatever options. She actually came to our zoning code ad hoc committee and talked with the folks on that committee about it. Currently, I think it's going to be recommended to change that to mixed-use zoning, which might allow perhaps some residential or some commercial along the old Highway 53 frontage, and then perhaps residential or something down more towards Cache Creek. So,
It's all one, how many parcels is it?
it's just one parcel.
It's huge.
So, and I have had some recent discussions with potential hotel developers that like that site as well. So it kind of remains to be seen what we'll see there, but there's definitely some interest in that. And I think we may be pretty close to purchase agreement. It's not city-owned property, but the property across the street there on the corner of 53 and Old Highway 53, there's a number of parcels there that I think would have already closed if it wasn't for the COVID situation, but as I understand, are still progressing positively. So there's a lot of development interest in the city right now, and just really hoping that the COVID situation resolves itself in a manner that we don't start losing out on some of these deals.
Thank you.
All right. Any commissioners have a report at all? Any commissioners have anything to report? Have you been busy during this COVID-19 shelter in place? Other than just doing the necessary essential things, haven't been able to do much. I take it there's no commissioner reports at this time. Good to have Aaron with us. Glad you're on board with us. Next item is future. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. No, I'm going to wait till this one.
Future agenda items is next item.
So I don't know if the commission has anything they want to consider, but related to the Austin Resort property, I was going to mention that we do need to do have a finding of consistency of that property transfer with the general plan, and so I would expect whether we can hit the next regular meeting or we try to call another special meeting, hopefully sometime within the next 2 weeks, I would like to have that back before the commission so we can keep that transfer progressing.
Okay.
That's the only thing I have right now.
You think we'll be having a meeting within the next 2 weeks?
That's my hope, yeah.
Okay. All right, are there any other comments before we entertain a motion to adjourn? If not, I want to thank everyone who took the time to submit any comments, which we didn't have. And to those who are watching our meeting on YouTube, I'd like to have a motion to adjourn the meeting. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Wilson, is there a second? Oh, do we have a
Second.
Okay. Do we have a comment or a question there? I saw your hand.
It's just our friendly city engineer waving.
Oh, okay.
Great evening.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Good. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was fun.
Get to do it again soon, hopefully.
Okay.